Hey everybody, welcome back to another all-new X's for Show, your premier media response show, and you could check us out on all your socials at X's for Show, also plus dot blue sky or whatever. I'm Nico, and you can check me out on all of my socials at Nico Action. That's NicoAction.
And I'm TK. You can find me on all those same socials at TK Elemental.
And that makes me Kevo. You can find me everywhere at Kevo Really. That's Kevoreally. And why are we here today, gents?
Oh, it's the rise of the fan favorites. Fan favorites to the front. Fan favorite.
It's Star Wars Hype Weekend.
Work fan
I have to get
favorite.
that GIF up for you. I have to get that. I have it somewhere.
Ahsoka is the Valentina of Star Wars. Let's just
Kinda.
But so we're here to talk about not just Ahsoka, but like how significant a moment Ahsoka actually is for fandom, as it sees a female animated series, questionable canon side character, like championed and, hoisted up in a way that's actually, whether or not it's your thing, it at least says that people are reacting to the things that were Clone Wars, that everybody said this is real Star Wars during that era, and they're making good. And I mean do like DUE, not do like D. Oh my god, it's Ali Galactic. Ali Galactic has just entered the chat building and says, "Hi, I'm Ali. You can find me in the 7th Circle of Hell, where barbecue rad sausages and spend my time kicking eternity damned bigoted souls. Hi."
Hi.
Hello.
Super love having you. And now we have a question to start this thing off with. And so, like, Ali, you got to get in on this question. What color, whether it's Power Ranger, lightsaber, what color is your fan favorite self? I really want to put that out there, right? And I want to, maybe you're not a lightsaber
For the sake
person.
of streamlining, yeah, we're putting lightsaber. But
This
if you
is
want to
Ahsoka
answer
inspired,
something different, exactly. Inspired by the crux of the topic, but yeah.
I just want to say that when George Lucas went over to Samuel L. Jackson and was like, "I would like it if you were in a movie for me, and if you want to be a Jedi, that would be really terrific." And Samuel L. Jackson was like, "One condition, I get to have a unique lightsaber color." And George Lucas was just like, "I find that to be a very reasonable demand." And so, like, Samuel L. Jackson,
Back when that was just a reasonable demand. Back when, there'd only been 3 lightsaber colors, but he was like, okay, I don't really care. Sam said it.
yeah. And so then we get Rey with the golden one. I think there's a lot of really cool things to be mined. I love that Ali Galactic's comments are mauve or perhaps puce. I would just like to say, if I could have a lightsaber in any color I could, I would want like a bright blue beam, like cerulean, like no color lightsaber we've ever had. Like hold it up in the sky and you can't see it, but I would want it to be haloed in orange.
Of course. So blue with an orange glow, you say?
Yes.
Okay.
I
Kind
just
of like
think-
a coppery, like a coppery
Yeah.
would be cool.
First of all, I would look like one of those amazing NBA players in the New York Knickerbockers, and I would really enjoy that moment for myself with the orange and blue. But that's right. I
Never said
did say
cerulean. Yeah.
like the city. So TK, what is your inner fandom color? What's your fanboy color?
I think it's the same for all of them. My lightsaber color, the Power Ranger I would take, the color designation of my X-Men team, all pink. I'm a man that looks good in pink. It works well with my Sephardic complexion.
Good for you.
And everybody knows I love pink. Fuck yeah, that's great.
Love that
pink.
for you.
So hot. Oh my god, X-Men Pink would be the hottest X-Men comic of all time.
I really think it's,
Black pink in your area.
a Stonewall inspired X-Men team. It's, Pank Saber. Yes.
Whoosh. Yes, Allie.
It would be, I would probably have like a little dagger type one, because I feel like that's one we don't, although Ahsoka kind of has like,
She's got the one short one. Yeah, you're right.
yeah.
The K-Papalorian wanting the Blackpink saber would be my favorite thing in the entire world. Me baby, it would be great.
I also do I vibe with the dark saber on screen. I know some people really don't like the effect. I think it's cool. I think the dark saber itself is a little bit dumb because it's like, we've had lightsabers for so long. Guess what? Dark saber. But also, I do think it's a little bit cool. So
Agamotto wants his eye back. You know what I mean? I love it.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's really, really, really leaning into the camp of Star Wars in some ways, and a lot of people would probably try to tell you it's not.
With Giancarlo Esposito in the mix too, I think it all works. But Kevo, what about you? What do you got?
They tried to make Camp Star Wars. It closed down. Alec Galactic says Darksaber aesthetic is neato. I definitely agree. I love that aesthetic. So maybe something I'd love to see, and I know it's dumb to say, but Darksaber in different colors.
Yeah.
Something in a red, something in a gold. I love Rey's yellow one. I love gold. My Ranger at the very beginning was definitely the Green Ranger. Green, I've always loved the color green. I like the Luke green saber more than I like the blue one. If I'm gonna go all like cute and chintzy and fancy like Nico, I would probably do something where it's like a green with a gold accent, I think.
You know, I'm just really glad that we didn't wind up with like a third, fourth, and ninth Star Wars holiday special where we get, George Lucas trying to pitch really inclusive lightsabers. Like, it starts out with like, it's a candy cane saber. It goes up right.
It can stripe because of the magic of a cracked saber and the crystals.
Then they have a friend named Beth Meyer, and they're never clear about it, but she has a gentle blue saber and doesn't celebrate any of the traditional Jedi holidays. But her people should be included too. I'm just really glad we didn't reach that level of, oh no. That would have been D- instead of D+. So
Indeed.
We would, in fact, all have super dope lightsabers. Ali Galactic, absolute truth.
Heck yeah.
So I want to say why we're here is because I was terrified I would not get Ahsoka. I was scared out of my mind that
I wouldn't understand it.
Yeah, I was scared that it wasn't going to be accessible to me, despite Ahsoka being a character from the half of Clone Wars I've seen that I loved passionately. She made me love Anakin, and also Hot Camboy. What's his name?
Tyler Posey.
Oh
no, from
Timeless
90210 and Timeless. Yeah,
he's the voice actor
Anakin.
for Anakin.
Kendall.
He is so spectacular. But really,
Matt
Lanter, thank you. But really, Ahsoka made the Clone Wars so special to me, but we only saw about half of it before we got a little distracted by the world ending from a terrifying breathing virus. So we wound up falling off of Clone Wars in our watch through, and so I'd been
let alone Rebels or anything else. Exactly.
And I just want to say, like, there's this moment in an episode of Golden Girls where Blanche has written a manuscript, and she trusts Rose to read the manuscript, and she says, you can open any of the notebooks, the magic will touch you. Actually, yeah, I mean, I'm an Obi-Wan boy to the point of problematic fan stupor. Like, if Obi-Wan said it, it's fine. This was so good. I hold everything up to Ewan McGregor looking me in the eye and telling me he loves me. So like,
I know, right, Christian.
So I just
sing to me.
I'm weak for Ewan McGregor, but this was so good. I can't stop raving about what a spectacular time I had, feeling like everyone was welcome to the party, super fan or not, and it was such a good time.
And I agree. I think the way you're describing it is very much imagining everybody having a good heart, and I much more had the cynical like, oh, they were smart to make this viable for everybody because it will sell better that way. I think my bigger thing is less that like everybody is welcome to the party, which is totally 100% true, and I think is something that Star Wars is doing very well. I think I have walked away from every Disney Plus Star Wars series feeling galvanized. Alec Galactic says Obi-Wan was excellent Star Wars. Haters can choke on my gooch. I completely agree. I was galvanized by
for president.
Truly, I was galvanized by Obi-Wan. I was galvanized by Mandalorian. You know, really everything in the D Plus era and the stuff before that too, but the D Plus era 100%. And as I got through these first 2 episodes of Ahsoka, and I ended it and looked at my Disney Plus menu and saw Secret Invasion, I thought, shit, I really haven't been galvanized by basically anything lately, especially. Like, I think I was really excited about WandaVision, but then man, did Multiverse of Madness kind of kill that vibe.
Yeah.
Loki, kind of similarly, I was impressed, but then like when we picked up on Kang, I'm now less impressed. And
yes, and again, the Multiverse of Madness thing, because it's the showrunner of Loki wrote Multiverse of Madness. So I'm like, okay, great. Maybe he's got a plan. No real connection at all. So again, what's going on?
But hold on. Have you guys heard that? Hey, you know, everybody keeps saying it's unconnected, but you know it has a secret connection to what? The Marvels is secretly connected to Hawkeye in some way. We're all going to have to just sit back and watch.
I'm sure there's going to be like a scene where Wilson Fisk looks up into space and is like, oh, it looks like people are fighting out there.
Space is up there.
Time to do land crime, because I don't do space crime.
I would love it if Wilson was just like, I need to get a spaceship to smash your head in the door. And, you know, he's just ready to kill Space Wesley with it.
I completely agree.
Wesley.
You embarrassed my planet in front of Vanessa.
But yeah, I mean, I've been really excited about every Star Wars show and really impressed. Aesthetics, character work, writing, music. My gosh, these musicians, everybody is a disciple in Star Wars production. You know, Dave Filoni as a disciple of George Lucas, who maybe has done better than the master. Beautiful to see, and like truly coming to fruition in this era.
Filoni!
Every time I say it every time. But then, you know, a lot of the composers are really showing you that they listened to John Williams, but that they also really want to do their own thing. Not just their own personal style, but that they recognize the genre of the show that they're doing. There really is such incredible Western theming to Mandalorian, the way that there is a very much like a minimalist kind of referential to monastic orders sounding musical score in a lot of parts of Ahsoka. And I don't want to say like, sorry, go ahead.
I want to point to the fact that specifically Kevin Kiner was the composer on Clone Wars, was the composer on Rebels.
Yeah.
So it's just really important to highlight seeing specifically his evolution through the franchise. Like, it's not just he's paying homage. He's put in the work for
right. Yeah,
15 years.
He was in the transitionary period, taking us from John Williams into this next era. And again, same thing with Dave Filoni. I mean, I think that is a real. I don't do it again. I can see that look on your face. These people have been doing. These people have been doing this now for going on 20 years, and it's not just that they learned from the masters. It is that they picked up right where the masters left off, and they had, you know, honestly, if we're being really honest about early Clone Wars especially, I don't think it is amazing. I think we all love it because we were kids at the time, and it does build, but like they made their mistakes on air, and now they're really all this time later at the height of some amazing career work.
You know, and I just want to say that is why to Ali Galactic's amazing comment of, wait, I'm flashing it.
Okay.
Mando's OST is so iconic. That's why
Ludwig.
I did this Skinny Puppy remix of the Mando theme. It's 1989. I'm on Network Records. It's really exciting. So
I don't know what that means.
It's a really good reference if you're Canadian and 40. Um, so anyway, the other thing that I want to say that I think TK, you're so exquisitely exploring the galvanization. It's a little bit more than just because like there was a wow, it's good. There's something about like wow, it doesn't take me out of the moment.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think the Star Wars shows do so well. They put you in a moment, and it's like something we've been talking about a lot with Marvel Comics. I don't really want a book called X-Men Legends where, you know, they say, Chris Claremont, what is your most ayahuasca fueled nightmare dream for Kitty Pryde's sexual awakening on her 18th birthday? That is not the book I want anymore.
Didn't ask for it. Sorry.
Don't care for it.
And so I think what they really need to do is they need to find a way to segment the Marvel universe into eras the way DC is doing so well. Not really, but they're trying. And that's, I think Star Wars does it. That like there's going to be a Rey. So Rey, my favorite Jedi of everyone else can just eat a shoe. Like Rey is so great. You know, that Rey is getting another project in a world where Mandalorian is still getting projects in a world where I think they've said that we're going like, I think they've said that we're going to meet the dinosaur that was first like, oh, I can move. No, okay, I've got the Force. I'm a dinosaur with little arms, but the Force too. I think they've said we're getting a movie like that. I mean, Ray Stan high five.
Hey, Ali.
But that's the thing. Like Star Wars moves in and out of eras so beautifully, and every one of these projects seeks to capture something I love about this era with a deftness and charm that, you know, is usually reserved for like Sutton Foster and Drowsy Chaperone.
I mean, the difference between the two is that Star Wars gave us such thin slices of an entire galaxy, but then also the era in that galaxy that like
Great point.
We really do, you know, just all that we're learning about other Force users, the Night Sisters, like the fact that, of course, this isn't something that is just limited to Jedi and Sith, and like other people are going to use it differently, and that's going to kind of be important. That has been hinted at for a long time and sort of played a little bit and built up over time to where now we're seeing kind of these live action characters that could represent a lot more about what that means. Star Wars really has given us a lot of opportunity to fill in the blanks for the various eras that are there in a way that like the universe is so massive. I still want to know something I've said a lot about Star Trek. I have a little bit of trouble. I don't really care about what's going on in Strange New Worlds because they've already given us the definitive history of what is said to have happened at that time. Now, Strange New Worlds is
we all know that when white people tell us exactly what happened, it's always true the first time around.
In the future, obviously, because everybody's just got good intentions.
Because in the future, packages will be sent to distant lands through beams of light. It's all fine.
I say that every week.
Star Trek has been getting me a little bit off of this idea that like it was so poorly done originally that kind of coming back around works, but like, you know, I'm constantly, if Discovery exists and that's the future, now I maybe don't care so much anymore about what's going on in the era of Jean-Luc Picard in his weird synth clone body, 7 of 9 as a captain. Like, if we can just go into Discovery and be told everything that happened in those people's pasts, I maybe don't care so much. Star Wars, there's so much to fill in that has never been codified that I actually really do want to know. And then all the way on the other end of the spectrum, Marvel has given us so much immaculate detail of a 60-year publishing period that like they are really hoping we'll believe is like a 5 or 10-year period of time having passed, where like it stretches credulity to say it's been 20 to 30 years, but we're willing to kind of accept that. I can't really...
I love Credulity's song on the new Barbie soundtrack.
I'm gonna kill you. I can't really I can't do eras with Marvel because I know every single thing. Every time Chris Claremont is like, but this is that one weekend that Gambit went on vacation. I truly am like, but it doesn't matter at all because I know every other detail of Gambit's life, and the one weekend he went on vacation cannot be relevant, and I'll tell you why, because here is the entire laundry list of other events that happened that never mention the weekend that you're making up. So no, I can't do eras with you, unfortunately. I think for Marvel, it has to be like entirely separate universes that are somehow connected. But Star Wars is in a great place. That back to the original point. Star Wars is just in the perfect place because yeah, we can do Old Republic, we can do right around the fall of the Republic, we can do end of Return of the Jedi, or we can do far future.
2 responses to that.
Please.
1 being, I feel like what? Oh, you're
No,
counting me.
Yeah.
One of the reasons that I feel like that works so much and so well for Star Wars, to draw back to a facetious quote we used, packages are sent to distant lands in beams of light. In Marvel, in Star Trek, the things like beaming and all of these wacky space things that they're able to do, where they kind of travel a lot more instantaneously.
Mhm.
You have hyperspace travel, but that's not really the same thing. There isn't quite the same magic zipping around the galaxy that there is. They really do make you feel how big and how wide the Star Wars galaxy is, and how frequently cut off certain areas of the galaxy are. And there's always been, everything you said is so true. There has always been so much potential, even just in one era of time, where there's things like different types of Force users that they haven't really explored as much as they could have in live action. So many different stories. And as Ali
consent users.
As Ali Galactic is pointing out in the chat, saying, great point, the eras kind of define what you can loosely expect as far as tone, almost like genres within the subgenre of the different Star Wars shows and stories.
This era that Mando is in, that Ahsoka is in, this is very much a Reconstructionist era. And it has the feel of, it does the thing that like Firefly was never really able to do. The post-Civil War in space.
I only wish that there was a better general pop culture understanding of a lot of the stuff that they are doing, because one of the things that sometimes vexes me, that it's easy to tease Star Wars about, is there's that one show that's out right now, or it's coming out, it's the Young Jedi Adventures, and it's a bunch of cute little furry Padawans, and everyone's like, oh, these kids are going to die. Oh, these kids are going to die. It's like 500 years ago. Yeah.
Time does, in fact, come for us all.
And that is sort of sometimes a little, it's just, and it says a lot about the way people like to come at Star Wars, where it's just so easy to poke at some of its shit sometimes. And people just want to be able to say, oh, they're all going to get killed. But no, a lot of these people are going to die in like the next 20 years, 50 years, which is still very far away from all that shit from episode 3.
Not to lose all of our viewers, but like what you're saying, where they're like, oh, these kids are going to die. Yeah, I agree. There's such a dumbness to being like, ha ha ha, these young Jedi are going to die someday. They're saying the Youngling massacre, right? Where somebody came in and destroyed all the beers. But, the other side of it that I think is sort of worth noting is nobody ever watches Frasier and goes, yeah, but Eddie eats vomit. Like, obviously, he's a dog, and we know that dogs do whack, dumb dog things, right? It takes such a level of loving something, right? Like, it's a really fascinating thing that we're kind of asked to do for the sake of Star Wars. They say the Jedi aren't perfect. If you think the Jedi are perfect, then you think you're watching, a life parable that you're meant to represent, but it's a little bit more like the fallibility of society when rules become more central than the human experience. And, there's levels and layers to the exploration that the Jedi provide us to the experience of being human, right? Of course, you could just choose to see the Sith as simply evil. And okay, but we do see there is kind of like depth to the Sith. Each Sith does have some kind of internality. I think the fact,
Most. Many.
yeah, but I'd say
Yeah.
the fact that Palpatine is just like, no, I really hate death. And
Yeah,
everyone's like,
Sheev is just
yeah, no, Sheev is just completely useless. I mean, like,
he's
what a
just a dweeb.
broken dildo. He is
Yeah.
literally good
Yeah.
for nothing. And
Nothing at all.
I think he's a very obvious portrayal of like an older white man of this era that his character was. I see that laughing. You're about to say something dumb.
He did it.
I'm gonna kill you. No, you're Kevo. You're fine. It's all him. I see exactly what he's doing. He is a George Bush, Newt Gingrich type who thinks that the worst possible thing is that he would die, that we should spend whatever capital we have prolonging death and amassing power to prolong death and create legacy for as long as possible, and how horrifying and decrepit and frightening one becomes when their whole life is simply putting off death.
And I think he also points to something that I was saying earlier in the episode, which is you have to think about what the origin and intention of this whole franchise is. Where, like, yeah, he's meant to be a big spooky villain in a cloak who talks like this and has, like, it's a little silly and it's a little over the top, and it represents sometimes someone has a power that even if you think they're ridiculous. Tough. That's what you're up against.
Actually, you said a name and you said it right, my friend. My guy, but like you said it right, my friend, when you said Newt Gingrich. I think back on this quote he used to have when I was like 12, right? Because that horrible nightmare was listened to for a really long time. And he used to say, "My formerly nicotine-stained fingers," in reference to the fact that he'd quit smoking. Nicotine is colorless. So no, they weren't stained. Like the thing he was trying to say was like tar. He was trying to talk about like the yellowing
and
of
maybe
things.
tobacco even, but he didn't want to come for American crops.
But so he says this thing that's, well, you know what I'm saying. But if somebody else says something wrong on a term, it's not just, you know what I'm saying. It's that interesting way that people who believe that their expertise makes them an expert in fields and their jack of all trades knowledge makes them as good as an expert in any other field. The only thing that the Sith are real experts in are, as Ali Galactic points out, being extremely pure evil. So the other side of it then becomes everything else that Ali Galactic does is I got so confused. Everything else the Sith does is the thing they're less good at. The thing they are best at is being pure evil. And in that regard, your point is really well taken.
And it's evil through greed and trying to amass power and trying to, spit in the face of natural processes like death. And it's the great thing I think Star Wars never does, because we see way too much of this, is like attempting to humanize a character like Palpatine and be like, right, but he's really just scared of death. Because we all know that. We can all look at him and say, like, he is just terrified of dying, which literally is going to happen to everybody. And, he allows himself to be...
Even those Jedi.
Especially the younglings. It happened to Plagius. It's going to happen to all of them. And everything that he does is in service of this plan wherein he can hold on to life and power. And that's something that I think works really well as just like we actually don't need to go in depth. We don't need his sad backstory. We don't need like the wife that he loved or whatever. Like, he can just be the worst.
It's one of those things where things influence each other in positive and negative ways in so many ways. And for whatever reason, we were discussing the Mr. Freeze backstory edition to Batman the Animated Series in the 90s. And I
Yeah.
think that is one of those story like turning points where that really inspired so many people to think differently about villains. And there have been so many stories like that where like now we feel like we have to insert these things. But like sometimes people just suck. They really do. And we need to remember that too.
Or it can just be headcanon that they don't, you know what I mean? Like if
Yeah.
whatever you imagine of his life on Naboo that made the Emperor like this, whatever you want, that's fine. Do I want a series? Do I want young Palpatine? I simply do not.
No, not ever.
And-
I didn't need this Hunger Games prequel that we're getting.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah.
It's hard for me because my favorite books. I mean, like I am eternally a 15-year-old girl in this way. I think Hunger Games are the most perfect books ever. I just can't make myself read the prequel. It's just not in my spirit. But when you say we find reasons to make evil villains less evil in ways, like when you tell me that the reason Magneto is so messed up is because number one, scary real life metaphor that they put into the comics, made more real by making him an actual member of a protected class, a minority that had been a victim of the same things that the mutant allegory represented. But then there's also like in-universe nightmare stuff they've done to him, like Moira McTaggart experimenting on his wee baby body. So like it's weird. And in that, you said, okay, but Magneto is a complicated person. And then you took Sabretooth and you said, yeah, probably a lot of bad stuff, but God, he's garbage. And that's the trade. Like when you say to me, okay, so this happened recently. Our incredible guy, Jonah, was on the show, and he grew up in a world where he only ever knew that Darth Vader was Anakin. He didn't grow up and see it unfold. So like,
and he kind of like hugely knew Hayden as Anakin Skywalker because of when Attack of the Clones came out.
And so as a result, his understanding of Star Wars exists and is precipitated by the greatest walk back in history. Like the heart of Star Wars for everybody after 1997 is okay, but the bad guy is the good guy of the other stuff. And I don't think there's a whole lot of other canons where it's like, oh, okay, but for those Lord of the Rings books, yeah, Sauron's the bad guy. But in this set of Lord of the Rings, it's sort of like he's one of the good guy Power Rangers and just goes Lord Zed in the other books, right? Like, I can't think of a lot of things where the character became so ubiquitous with the nature of good and evil, because that's the only reason Darth Vader could be redeemed, because he represented such pure evil. It was humorous verging on calamitous.
That is something that I feel like I am really seeing, especially in the Disney era, where it feels like they are trying to very much make Vader a distinct personality that like takes over Anakin and is separate from Anakin, and they are trying to very much draw the
parallax line. One more fucking goddamn it! Okay, does anybody know if this Nathan Fillion is gonna be Green Lantern in the? No. It's not true. Oh, I can sleep at night again. Okay. Anyway. Sorry, I just mentioned it the other day.
What we're talking about.
Two guys, a girl, and a spaceport. So, here's my big thing about Ahsoka that I really just want to say. Not like it's the most important thing, but number one, what a treat to yes, it was Ellie.
That's us, Ellie. We're sorry.
To see Ray Stevenson in a final role where his acting is utilized, where he is like Daddy Bear King.
Oh my god!
And, beautiful, man! What a
loves it.
What a sad loss, because like one of the things that generally sad loss, but one of the things that really I think so has my attention about this Ahsoka series is this is the year of animated people becoming live action. And while Lower Decks to Strange New Worlds was a little bit more like, oh, dip, it's physical. I don't want to get too excited, but I have some expectation that maybe some of the animated versions of characters are going to show up in Deadpool. And I really could not believe, Kevo, you had to explain to me because, again, my lightsaber runs deep and strong and true, but occasionally is, a dumb stick. And I don't have a lot of the same background. And Kevo, you were gracious enough to explain to me that some of the other characters in this are also significant characters from the animated canon.
Yep.
And the quality of the canosity of this series lends itself to the strength of fandom's love for these ideas.
Yes, and most specifically, one that I'm bringing up an image for right now is one of everyone's favorite daddies.
He looks so cool.
Clancy Brown.
Yeah.
Translating
doing
his
the same
animated...
voice work for the character that he is portraying.
Amazing. This is such an amazing veteran, like, character actor and voice actor. So getting to see
cool.
him do this, translating the character. I didn't know that. I think I know, and then I keep forgetting that Mary Elizabeth, what's her name, who plays Hera, is married to. Yes,
Yeah.
She's married. Mary Elizabeth Obi-Wan. She's married to Ewan McGregor.
Yeah.
Did not know that. Did not know she was from Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah.
Never saw it.
She's
Jonas
also
movie.
Huntress in Birds of Prey. She's got a solid resume.
And she's the waitress on It's Always Sunny.
Shut
No,
up.
get out of here.
Made me
No.
spit on my computer.
That
No,
is
absolutely
incorrect.
not. We should all be so lucky as to be married Charlie Day.
Yeah, that is a handsome man with quite a vocal range. So, man, he's funny, but his voice.
I think, the question that I posed for us in the episode description was whether or not we felt Ahsoka was something that we really needed to have seen all of Rebels to have gotten. So far, not especially. I am actually really impressed and pleased to see that they're even doing things in this that are taking Rebels fans by surprise. All of the stuff about Ahsoka training Sabine, that's not from Rebels. I talked to Kid Riot line artist and show friend Taryn and Glima about it, and he was like, "Yeah, that's not from the show." So, like, we're all pretty thrown off by this too. So that's pretty cool. And I think what?
I'm sorry, my personal brave spirit that I pray to whenever I don't feel strong just popped into the chat.
Oh,
and
yeah. I
asked, do you need to know what wars happened in the stars beforehand? And
yes.
I only wish to say
birthday woman Tori Sheehan.
Oh my gosh,
yes.
yeah.
Happy
Yep.
birthday.
Not today, tomorrow.
Yeah,
but
no,
birthday weekend, birthday queen.
I hope there's a baseball game in her future. But I want to say that, like, I was gonna make a joke like, oh, you should know about the Crimean War and you should know about the war between the states. And someday we will cover Rocky and Bullwinkle in its entirety. But the thing that I think I want to highlight the most about what you're saying, Tori, and do you need to know about the wars? You're being funny. No, this just watches like a cool action movie. I watched Fast X and was really disappointed. Not because I expected a lot of quality from Fast X, but because I expected a fun action movie. And I didn't get it. Here, I got a fun action movie. And it was 2 episodes that amassed to an action movie. But gosh darn it, this was 2 hours that I really enjoyed. That I would have enjoyed even if I didn't know these characters. And I say that as somebody who only kind of vaguely knows these characters.
But I do want to give them a lot of credit because I think they walked the line and reaped the benefits really brilliantly well. As somebody who has not seen all of everything, no, I don't think you need to have seen Rebels or all of Clone Wars in order to enjoy the show. I think, this is such a perfect example of like characters will go on to do other things than the thing that you saw them in. They can go on to have entirely, in the same way that like people know you in college when you are studying, pre-med, and then when you end up becoming a lawyer, like they're not going to be like, are you seriously not pre-med anymore? Like you didn't become a doctor? No, this is just your life. You have different phases of your life. And these people who fought in the Clone Wars and, participated in the rebellion I'm going to kill you today.
Sorry, I was just thinking to myself, like, sorry, I didn't love medicine. Sue me.
Brilliant humor. Kevo for the win. Filoni! Filoni really has killed it by pointing out that, like, yeah, Ahsoka, we know her from Clone Wars, then she was in Rebels. Now she's here, and they are actually all connected, and if you have done the work of watching everything, you get bonus enjoyment. You get to see this character connect the threads, but if you don't, you are not the least bit lost, and I felt really excited to go back and watch everything, but never like, well, I don't get what's going on, so I guess I've got to. I feel like I've seen 8 different movies where people will have the same lines of dialogue in which, a friend is like, oh, well, your mentee really needs you. And that's just written into the movie. There's no prequel to the movie. That's just the story. Here...
Star Wars usually does a really good job of helping walk you through what is going on. Not like a horrible way, but like they don't want you to be lost. They want you to be able to follow, so they absolutely make sure there's stuff built into the dialogue. And I'm seeing a lot of comments like the one from Swagger Like Us here, which says, after waiting 5 years via Rebels epilogue, I couldn't have asked for a better premiere for Ahsoka, i.e. Rebels Season 5. And thanks for the sub.
Thank you for the sub.
Welcome to the action pack.
Absolutely. And I really love and appreciate so much that they're working to try and make sure that it's both. They want it to feel like it's season 5 of Rebels, but in such a way. I've got my Doctor Who background up, but that's something that I usually love so much about Doctor Who is they try to make sure a season is self-contained in such a way that you can come in fresh and enter and be able to enjoy it and leave satisfied. There are things that you want to be connective threads if it's an ongoing franchise and series, but you want it to be accessible. And I think that's super cool.
A lot of people never saw Silence in the Library before they met River with Matt Smith and saw that entire, and that's fine. That's totally okay. It is totally fine not to have seen this stuff. It's okay to learn that Sabine is Ahsoka's the mentor of Sabine just through dialogue. But if you got to see that relationship develop, or should you see this and say, I wonder how that happened, and go back, that's just bonus material, man. That's just, and if you can make it work seamlessly where your viewers, like the 3 of us in this case, are just like, I still had a fantastic time. I never felt out of it. But I can see where my watching mileage is going to really get more value if I go back and watch this stuff. Again, I gotta say, I don't see Marvel doing this, and it's really disappointing because I think they can and should, but they seem to be in this constant fear that, like, specifically it seems like the Star Wars production crew doesn't have. Marvel seems to be in this constant fear of alienating anybody. So, like, God forbid we have anything connected to anything else with anything other than expository dialogue that is just, like, sometimes painful to listen to.
And it's so funny because they have all the source material to work from, and Star Wars is doing a lot of the same, where they're bringing in a lot of things from what is now dubbed Star Wars Legends, which I think it was smart to dub that Star Wars Legends and pull stuff in now, because there was
up on Marvel Unlimited.
Because there was no real unifying creative driving force. A lot of the stuff conflicted, and there was a lot of really wonderful things, but there was a lot of Chewbacca gets crushed by a planet and nobody wanted that. So instead we can pull things from Star Wars Legends, and it's been amazing so far. And Marvel has even better versions of that. So the fact that they can't pull it together a little bit better, it just seems odd more than anything.
And I want to comment on the nature of our earlier discussion about the notion of eras and talk about the duality of character under the idea of time as a demarcation. As a kid, I couldn't have expressed that what I loved about Obi-Wan was that he was older and that I saw myself as a Luke or a Han in whatever capacity, or a Leia, whatever capacity I saw myself as a younger player in this drama. And, I would come to realize that I was kind of universally drawn to appreciating the older male figure a lot more. But once I was a teen, I was deeply drawn to the roguishness and the romantic charm, the Errol Flynn romanticism, the K-hole of Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan, because he represented a lightness. He represented a romance that I would come to feel was a part of who I was as a man. That, Sir Alec Guinness is a handsome gentleman, but he's no Ewan McGregor. Very few men are. And, I didn't think Ewan McGregor is that beautiful. He's no Gabriel Luna. But there's these layers, these levels that when you see somebody exist in a duality, right? I don't want a younger woman to come in and play Princess Leia, maybe just yet, because they decided not to recast her right away, so that we have a beautiful interpretation in this strong young girl who is, by definition of girl, unsexualizable. I think that's important because Princess Leia has now been played in both dualities by Carrie Fisher as a young, beautiful, sexy woman and as a mature, dignified, sexy, incredible, genius tactician. Like, they really elevated Leia so beautifully in 7 and 8 and her value in 9. And it's this duality of character where characters can exist in two forms, played by 2 actors, 3 actors, 6 actors. That is so special to Star Wars because nobody's saying, oh, it's like Atlas Shrugged, where they kept recasting people. First of all, don't make Atlas Shrugged. Second of all, don't make Atlas Shrugged. God.
Those are the first 2 rules of Literature Club.
Yeah, and the third rule is if you're going to make it, just accept that you're going to recast the actors because nobody's got that much patience. Nobody.
Or do it as like a satire.
Paul Johansson was in that movie. It was a satire.
This is the second hottest Obi-Wan ever is. Episode 3 is the second hottest Obi-Wan ever is. For me, the sexiest Obi-Wan ever is the D+ series. He is... you can ask Kevo. I had like a religious experience every episode of Obi-Wan because that's my Jedi. Like, I don't have religion. I'm raised by a very religious man. My father is a very religious person, but he's a unique kind of religious where it's never your problem, which I think is really attractive. My dad keeps the fact that he is a deeply Christian person his thing. It's not your thing. But I then identify with men of deep social and emotional moral conviction, right? Because like whether or not you necessarily intentionally attach to your father or your older brother, you come up with these ideas, these iterations of manhood, right? And I think one of the things that Obi-Wan provides is a complex look at manhood. Obi-Wan starts sorry for his mistakes. The first idea you have of Obi-Wan is a man who is willing to say, I'm sorry, I messed up. And then the final version we have of, one of the greatest literary characters of all time, Luke Skywalker. I dare anybody to fucking argue with me. The guy is like Falstaff levels of important to fiction, right? Luke Skywalker's final moments are an unforgivable but bizarrely in character mistake in the face of being avuncular. And then God, that moment where he tries to make it up by stopping, because that's really what it is. I'm not trying to be like Episode 8 is the greatest film ever made again. I'm not going to go there because I can't keep losing that fight. But
no, you can't.
The moment where Luke we're going to go watch that scene. The moment where Luke stops, he stops his nephew from becoming like his father. He stops him from making an unforgivable mistake. That's all he's doing. He's not really giving the rebels time to escape. He's giving his nephew a chance to resurface through the dark side the way you've been so clear to remind us that the nature of Star Wars has decided that there is a difference between Vader and Anakin. I think then we really need to see there's a difference between Kylo and Ben. And
Yeah,
it's that
fair.
one beautiful moment of God, that 5 minutes of episode
Oh
9
yeah,
where
no,
you have
5 minutes.
Ben.
Oh my god, we got so much more
I love.
resurfaced Ben Solo than we got resurfaced Anakin Skywalker and Jedi. So
We
like,
should be so lucky that Dakin plays out 1 millionth as well as that 5 minutes of Ben Solo.
Which unfortunately we kind of already know he doesn't. Which is fine, you know, that's its own thing. I mean, it's Fang is turning out great, and they kind of
gosh, right? Thank you.
Because they realized they could not. They
Jesus.
lost the opportunity to give us that moment. They did just kind of skip it.
Yes.
And they just leapfrogged right to him basically being a good guy with like a little bit close to like no explanation, like not enough of one certainly, but to the original point, I feel like it again just speaks to this thing that we keep repeating, which is that Star Wars has kept making the right calls and the right choices and putting itself in the correct position to keep our interest, keep us excited, and to do right by the work that they created from the beginning. They have figured out how to honor the source material.
You hear that, Galactic Star Cruiser? Star Wars is doing stuff right. You hear that, Galactic Star Cruiser?
and I would only want to amend in the broad sense, and when they are not faced with catastrophe, because that is always the asterisk I try to put on the final bow on the sequel trilogy, is like, please don't forget all the people that got fired and died, and they had like 18 months to make this movie. You know, they did what they could, so like, please just be grateful for the stuff that was good, and the stuff that sucked, well, we're just gonna Clone Wars that now.
Yeah.
Because that's just what we do now.
So I want to make a really interesting point, and I kind of alluded to it before, but something that I think is really amazing about this show is that it's so hungry to make so much of Star Wars okay, right? I actually defend the Episode 9 Wayfinder moment because there's something experiential about magic. You can't actually convince me that anybody can pick up the most powerful spell of all time. It also takes fate. It takes destiny. It takes the course of the soul that is meant to be there. And I say that because I've watched She-Ra and the Princesses of Power, and I know what a hero is.
For the honor of Grayskull.
I mean, for all that you are being a little bit funny, that is kind of one of the first points of Ahsoka.
I stand 8 and 9. I think they are.
We don't all stand Episode 9 together, but we all certainly stand reasonable reactions to Episode 9. There is no hate. We are your people, and we also love you.
And I 100% love 8 so much. I mean, I think 8 is just fantastic. I think
it's a beautiful film. The understanding of shot, color, composition, the dimension, the depth, the understanding of how to use shadow. That is the best use of chiaroscuro I've seen outside of the Met.
I mean, yeah, yes, in terms of filmmaking as well, it really is beautiful. I think in terms of continuing Star Wars lore, it was really fantastic. I think if not for Rey being a Palpatine, and
genderqueer Space Lando.
Yeah, Ali Galactic said, "I love Space Granddad Lando so
Billy
much."
D. Williams and I'm genderqueer.
Just Google Billy D. Williams gender fluid and enjoy yourself.
What?
I like Rey Palpatine, but I just I'm also more like, it's here, it exists,
Yeah,
it's
that's
what we
fine.
have,
Yeah.
and so I enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah.
If it had been something else, it could have been better.
Yeah.
And I certainly can't say that.
Yeah.
Maybe one
Yeah.
Kenobi.
Oh, no, that would have
Yeah,
been
Ray
great.
Kenobi would have been cool.
Yeah.
But like,
I mean, I also just really liked, I really liked that she was nobody, and that we end that movie on the little boy grabbing the broom with the Force, and just this idea that like this has all been siloed for too long.
and yours ultimately could still lead to the thing that I love more than anything, which is Rey Skywalker. So
Yeah.
that's fine.
Well, and I think we do in certain ways get Skywalker as a replacement term for Jedi. The Skywalkers are the people that tried to do better with the Force under Luke. But like, for me a
It'll
big
be
part
like
of
a clan now, yeah.
Yeah, and for me a big part of Star Wars is this idea that mysticism is all around us all the time, and to attempt to gatekeep and silo it will ultimately always result in the disaster that we see, throughout Star Wars. And so the whole idea being that like the secrets of the universe are not for any one person to say, are not meant for anybody else, but they are meant for us to guide each other in discovering. And that's another place that I just feel like this show is getting it right. Even the way we see use of the Force and use of magic being just another way of using the Force, which we'll talk about more tomorrow, but it really speaks to this idea that there has always been more going on here, and that we've only been privy to this one particular slice for very good reasons. But now, every time we do a new Star Wars thing, we do have the ability to turn the lens ever so slightly in a different direction. And you're right, the galaxy is physically huge, and while they do travel faster than light, they do have this kind of different idea that you can't get everywhere, that when you're in the outer rim, that specifically means you have less access, because we don't just jump to where we want to be and get there. It is a weeks or months long thing.
I need to say that part of what this conversation has led me to is kind of the soap operatic nature of Star Wars is one of the most undeniable parts of it, because like we're talking about parentage and lineage and 30 years ago and 60 years ago, and there's not a lot of things that offer you that opportunity outside of soap operas. And now like I can't help but think how much I would love like a little bit the WB Savannah, a little bit All of Our Dallas, and a little bit of Star Wars, where Jamie Luner comes in as an aged Leia, and she comes in and she goes, "I'm here to settle up the debts for Skywalker vodka." And like, I just think this could be the biggest hit in the world. And
I don't hate Jamie Luner as Princess Leia, first of all.
Jamie Luner was one of those women that kept me deeply aware that I was a pansexual man. She's so beautiful. Oh my God.
I love everything you're saying, and something that it reminds me of is our coverage of the Alien franchise, and specifically the shorts that we loved so much, and the way in which there are so many different stories you can tell in this galaxy in so many different tones because of the distance and the space between places, and the fact that like I don't know that I have seen very many Star Wars First Contact stories. Like, how many planets out there do you think have never had contact with the outside galaxy? It is entirely probable, because space, guys, it's fucking huge. I promise.
Oh my God. Yeah, they've never been like, yeah, we're a planet that doesn't know how to get off planet, and we only know about other planets when y'all land here. We're swamp folk.
You know, we make fun of the idea of people never having heard of Jedi, but like, sure, why not? There'll be people who haven't heard of what's the Republic? What's the Empire? What are you even talking about?
I thought I just had a really cool idea. I was like, what if the next one is called Return of the Jedi? I have to go. I have to go. Oh my God, it's been so long since Return of the Jedi.
Re-return. It's been 40 years, so don't feel too bad about yourself.
All right. So here's what I want to say. I want to say that we're going to talk deeply about Ahsoka tomorrow because she's so cool. You know,
Yeah.
she's just great. She's so cool. And the thing that I love the most about Ahsoka is it reminds us about the promise of these sorts of products. And I don't want to, I don't like pitting women against women. And I certainly don't like pitting women of color against women of color. But like, this is a beautiful moment for two women of color, actually. Both Ahsoka and Rosario Dawson, and the greatest member of Starfleet ever, Beckett Mariner, both of which have leapt from the. And I know that this is Ahsoka's second outing, but Ahsoka was in Mando to get ready for Ahsoka, the TV show starring Ahsoka. It's not like they were like, I wonder what would happen. They were like, Rosario Dawson, what are you doing for the next 16 years? You know what I mean? So
this nothing but this, please.
Wait, are you guys telling me that I can choose between Ahsoka Tano, the most recognizable cartoon element of the Star Wars universe, or being Night Nurse for the next 16 years? Hold on, let me put on my thinking cap. I'm going to sign the Star Wars contract while I'm thinking, but we'll figure it out later.
She never had the option of being Night Nurse because they already screwed that up because Rachel McAdams is closer to being Night Nurse.
Night is more like it.
Well, but now they can redo it all with the new Daredevil.
I heard a really great theory as to why Karen and Foggy aren't in this.
Yeah.
They died, and
it's because they're dead.
Like,
you plebes.
They died.
I was like, oh wow.
That's a theory right there.
That was just like,
do you mean they got blipped?
No, I mean they're actually.
Oh, they're really dead. Okay.
I mean, I'd love it if they were. I would love it if they were like blipped.
Can't explain them.
Or they died as a result of blipping, like their pilot got blipped, so their plane crashed or something. But just like someone was like, "Oh, guys, I figured it out," and I was like, "Thank God for Reddit." Okay, so
what are we talking about?
Beckett Mariner.
Naturally.
No, if anything, Karen Page, that's talking about characters that became more beautiful, more incredible, and more amazing when a live action actress was given the opportunity to bring that character to its full 3D passionate life. Truly, Karen Page on screen is 100,000 times better than Karen Page in the comics. And the only person whose opinion on Daredevil actually defines my opinion on Daredevil, Tim Burnham, has said so. So it's okay to think that. Thanks for telling me what to think, Tim. But I want to talk for a minute about the nature of fandom and the power of fandom. Lower Decks was a joke that didn't get to happen. Lower Decks was a thing that people wanted to see happen and didn't happen multiple times. And then it really happened. And a guy who was notable for his brilliant work in sci-fi cartoon humor animation. What an incredible thing that's a genre. I guess thanks to the combined efforts of guys like Seth MacFarlane and Matt Groening, right? While the creators themselves are deeply flawed people, the combined efforts of what they sought to do created a world where this sort of humor could exist. And any project that has my wife, like Futurama does, is okay with me. Katie Seagal is the actual love of my life, bar none. So anyway, so I want to ask you guys, what does it mean that we're living in an era where the coolest characters from animation are not just getting live action interpretations the way Ahsoka Tano is getting a live action interpretation by an actress who has been associated with Rent, the Marvel Universe, with the Jay and Silent Bob Viewers Universe. But I mean, like, seriously, Josie and the Pussycats, those creators just went on to do the music to the Star Trek musical. So you're not just whistling Dixie there. Oh, can I not say that anymore?
We should look it up.
Oh gosh. Let's
You're
hope
not
it's
just
about the
whistling
Dixie
nothing.
cup. You're not just whistling Dixie cups anymore. Okay.
You're not
So
just
what do you
whistling
guys-
cups.
What do you got? I got my ticket down to Mardi Gras. Okay, guys, what do you think about cartoon characters becoming real people?
I mean, at its core, the premise you're describing is terrifying. But as a television concept, it's interesting. Teak, do you have thoughts?
I think it's kind of where we've been heading this whole time. It's one of those things where, like, I think we could have had it 20 years ago. There's no reason we couldn't have, other than just like this idea that, like, well, no, we can't. It will confuse people. Nobody watches the animated stuff is just for kids. So if you move something from animation to live action, adults won't watch it because they won't get it.
It's dumb, you dumb dummy.
You're dumb.
Are you
you're,
dumb?
You're an idiot for
You're-
thinking that.
You're a
It just
dumb
re-
baby.
It really does feel like that was what we were being told for so long. And that Clone Wars and Rebels fandom aged into their buying power and continued their interest in fandom and just said,
Yep.
like, we're not going anywhere. We're sorry that baby boomers like scared you by getting old and turning their backs on everything that's fun, but we discovered that the world's probably ending, so we decided not to do that while we still have time on this earth. And I'm all here for it, is the long and short of it. I can see a billion different ways it will be done poorly. And the first time they do a Simpsons live action, I'm just gonna eat a shoe. It's going to be really miserable. But this is a great example. This is right. They made Clone Wars and Rebels animated because to produce those and to produce that much content, live action wasn't feasible. But they created a great story there, and it's one that speaks well to doing live adaptations, as we have seen in things like Mandalorian, and as we've seen from characters like Bo-Katan. I think, the thing for this group, and especially you two, is like, you already had Bo-Katan, so there's a degree to which this isn't as big a deal. Like, they already pulled off the miracle. So this is just kind of like, we know we can do it. We might as well do it with a really iconic character.
Just real quick, anybody who doesn't understand, my account in Rock Band was literally Kara Thrace and his special
destiny. Yeah.
I had to make it and his special destiny because somebody already had and her. So I had to make it Kara Thrace and his
and
special.
your special destiny. She was just carrying it for you.
Right. Starbuck is like the greatest TV character. It's like Starbuck and Bree from Desperate Housewives are like the two greatest television characters ever, bar none. Ever. And the fact that we have Bo-Katan is like one of those, so say we all. It's one of those things where, like, you don't realize the quality of legacy. And I'm really glad that brought me back to my point, because I could get lost in Kara Thrace being the thing that got me through some really scary times in my life forever. But Kevo, one of the things that I love the most is something that you provided me as an experiential notion that as soon as I brought it to TK, it became realer. We brought up a moment ago that Rosario Dawson had been in things like Rent. Rent is actually a very significant project to me personally. I was lucky enough to actually be staged in a production of Rent by the Broadway cast, including the incredible Merle Dandridge, Carmine Allers. Yes, I will name check for a minute, because Merle Dandridge was in an episode of Angel. And actually, that big RPG
You
musical.
say that
every time, I
all
know.
the time.
But that big musical RPG that's going around right now that everybody is talking about how phenomenal it is, Merle Dandridge is one of the voice actresses in it. And it's because of her appearance in Angel, getting her attention, because the creative team behind that video game actually said they were inspired by the Buffy musical. Those who don't know how deeply connected Merle Dandridge is to everything we talk about, Merle Dandridge plays the mother in the very iffy Tarzan, the Broadway musical show, but her performance of "You'll Be in My Heart" is like all-time top 10 performances I've ever seen in my life, and I've seen Leah Salonga sing "I've Dreamed a Dream." So, I have
bitch.
like I
You
sorry, I don't
fucking
mean this
bitch.
shitty, but so Kevo, one time you said to me that you wished that Hamilton would be an animated musical instead of a live action musical. All I
Yes.
can think is that Star Wars is such a beautiful thing. As a guy who writes musicals, I want to write a Star Wars musical. No existing thing. I want to write a Star Wars musical. And when I think about like the effective power of a musical, I think about the fact that I am really excited to sit down and watch all 2 hours of the Final Fantasy X Kabuki theater performance. That just sounds very me. Like, that's like, what a cool way to take something to the next level. I only wish that somebody would give me the funds to spend the like 5 years it would take to write some like ring theory, because George Lucas wrote all of Star Wars in ring theory. Something, just some like general ring theory opera ideas, because like Wagner's opera. But Kevo, I really want to pivot to you. I know you probably have a lot of things to say about everything that's been said and this new thing I've introduced. This is a walk to the Odyssey from Spaceship Earth amount of response I've left you. So that the Odyssey is a special events pavilion in Epcot, and Spaceship Earth is the big tetradecahedron.
Well, what are you asking, first of all? I had stuff that I was going to say to Tika.
Yeah, I'm asking you to just keep replying. Reply to everything. All the things, Kevy. Reply like till you're done.
Sure. I'm still fuzzy on your musical thing, so I want to come back around to that. But I wanted to say,
just that the nature of Star Wars is so dexterous that there's just nothing it can't be shaped to, thanks to the power of the largeness of the story, as we've discussed.
Well, and that really does tie into what I wanted to respond to Teak with, which is it ties into the power of what fandom is looking for as well, and them vocalizing what they want. I think one of the most interesting pieces of feedback that I have seen so far to the Lower Decks crossover has been, well, we all know what time travel expedition that Strange New Worlds needs to have now, and Pike needs to be allowed to be Captain Archer. For a show that has not been beloved, to have seen so many people say, oh yeah, no, we definitely want Pike to meet Archer now.
Can I just say, I would love it if Archer was Mirror Universe Archer. Yeah, no, but like, and
okay, I thought you were going to say you wanted to be played by John Benjamin and be Archer from.
Oh, I would love that. No,
Archer.
I can't think of her name, and it's killing me. But the very little bit I saw of Quantico, starring the woman who went on to marry Nick Jonas. I'm sorry, play Nick Jonas' wife. Almost came out of my mouth. The woman who went on to marry Nick Jonas. She would play such an incredible Archer. Specifically, the things I've seen of her conviction, her strength. I would love to see exactly what you're saying. I would just love it to be Mirror Universe Enterprise.
It's Citadel and it's Priyanka Chopra.
Thank you.
Yes. Oh my God, Citadel.
She was on Quantico before she was on Citadel.
Yeah, Quantico was her first thing. Yeah, I don't know about first.
ABC renewed it for a full season after one episode based on the reviews for her performance. Thank you.
And so did Nick Jonas. So, but yeah, and so much genre bending too. We've had a few cool Star Wars animated projects come out in this new era. A lot of people are responding well to Bad Batch, but that kind of just feels like more of the Clone Wars and Rebels and Resistance style of animated programming, whereas Tales of the Jedi, I think, is a little more experimental. I would really love if we could start seeing more experimental things in Star Wars. I saw someone wonder, why haven't we seen a Star Wars horror movie? We could. There's that potential. Yeah, I especially feel like Star Wars above Star Trek, there's a lot of really great potential for something like that.
I think it would take like Key and Peele reuniting with that sense of comedy, but also everything that they've learned separately as directors, as filmmakers, it would take somebody so capable of redefining genre to do exactly what you're saying. But I can't think of anything I would love more than like a Marvel horror movie following, Werewolf by Night being the best thing that Marvel ever did. And just what you just said, Star Wars horror. Wow, Kevin, I hadn't even considered that.
Well, and honestly, like Nico, I liked your pitch earlier, but you were joking. But I can see very much like a wealthy family in the Star Wars world.
Yes.
Another
That's
thing,
Coruscant.
Yeah, well, I mean, a thing that we saw in this episode is that a big problem with Imperial loyalists is not that they loved the Emperor, is not that the Emperor was their Donald Trump. It's that they were greedy. It's that it was a financial empire as well. And that's been something about Star Wars that, that just shows you how small the slice that we've gotten is. Of course, that's why so many people loved the Empire. Of course, they were not just like, hey, we want to do evil. Like, hey, Evil Dead inside Star Wars. Ali Galactic, I think.
Very interesting.
I love
The
that pitch.
Galactinomicron would be incredible.
There's so many reasons why you could have what were essentially like Force zombies. That would be super cool. But empires get their support because of greedy people a lot of the time. And the idea that then kind of like in their own way, like Bo-Katan's family they weren't Imperial loyalists that were greedy, but they were a wealthy family. She was kind of a little
stubborn.
bit of, yeah, she's a little bit
Wealthy
of a princess.
and stubborn.
She was a little bit of a princess child. So like already there's precedent, but I would love to see, give me a dynasty, give me kind of a family soap opera about a wealthy family that made their money off the Empire and is trying to do better now. Like, the boomer generation of that family made money under the Empire, and now
what is galactic oil? We know that galactic drugs are spice, but what is galactic oil?
Yeah. Maybe they're a luxury trader in like kyber crystals or like other artifacts.
Hyperspace fuel exists apparently. Didn't know that.
I feel like we'll be talking more about fuel with future episodes of Ahsoka. So like I would so love a series that is just like this family living in the Star Wars universe. And to do exactly as Ali pitched it, like an Evil Dead style zombie flick in the Star Wars universe. It does really have the potential for all that stuff. I guess I also want to give them credit for not doing it because they have been a little more restrained, and I think that policy is paying off. Iger has been very vocal about the fact that we're pulling back on Marvel, and that is obviously just a cost-cutting measure. But
that the sexy little man is rotting from the inside out.
He's an absolute garbage person. But he is correct insofar as if you want to save money, make fewer Marvel projects. And I think a really big benefit of that is going to be there's going to be fewer mediocre Marvel projects. Really justify your thing and make it good. And I think Star Wars is just really getting it right for me.
Well, and I want to say one of the things that would give Star Wars more room to get it right is if Star Wars said, hey, Doctor Who, you're better at a lot of stuff than us. Can we learn from you? And Doctor Who said, I don't say.
Wobbly.
Here's the idea of specials. What if Star Wars produced the Empire Christmas special or the Empire Holiday special and it's Empire era? And what if they produced the, whatever era, springtime special? What if they gave us the opportunity? Because you know what? I'm sorry, Kathleen Kennedy, you've done a great job. Retire. Smuggler team has to stop and lay low on an outer rim planet. They find an ancient Sith holocron that awakens things on the planet, and they have to survive the night. I call it And Then There Were None. And it's brilliant. And it takes place on a hyper train and everything's great. And I'm making a silly joke, but I'm actually purposely comparing it to a classic detective novel that gave birth to the horror genre because it kind of invented the idea of, survivor horror in a lot of ways. And that's the idea behind Star Wars that makes it so accessible to me. What if the world was maybe a little bit exaggerated and instead of cities, it's planets? Because,
Right.
one of the things that Ahsoka, and we're going to get into it, I like cars. I find fast cars really hot. I go to the New York Auto Show and I spend way too much time watching the indoor racing track. It's so insane watching people go from like 80 miles an hour to 2 miles an hour in 2 seconds. It's
Inside.
inside the Javits. Oh my God, it's terrifying. You think you're going to die. It's amazing, right? And I say this because I don't know, but did anybody else notice how cool they tried to make pod racing this episode, just for me? It was so cute.
Wasn't
And
quite a pod.
it was pretty close to land speeders from Jedi, a little bit land speeders,
Yeah.
a little bit pod. But I think one of the things is like I just spent a couple of days in Tennessee and had an amazing time down there, and that's NASCAR-esque kind of like racing culture. There was a lot more racing down there than I'm used to up in Jersey. And, at the same time, if you tried to take Asbury Park from me, if you tried to tell me I couldn't go to the beach, I'd die. I'd literally wilt. And like, that's the nature of what Luke Skywalker grew up in. I wonder what it's like for Luke Skywalker to realize that the only ground he ever knew, the thing that would define the ground beneath his feet that made him feel safe, is sand. The one place his father couldn't set foot. So the irony becomes the one hollowed ground that gives Luke Skywalker a sense of home is the one place that Darth Vader can never call home. So like, it's that nature of the exploration of Tennessee versus Asbury Park, New Jersey, that Star Wars created for an entire generation of Americans who were embracing this idea of cross-country trips and of driving more. And you're a smuggler in a van that's just like the Millennium Falcon, and you're racing and you're in a hot little speeder, just like an X-Wing. And then you're a pod racer, and that's just like the rise of ATVs in the 90s. And think about how there was pod racing, and then Mark Paul Gosselaar and Mario Lopez, my personal sexual awakening, got on ATVs and raced for the love of Stacey Carosi. My personal sexual awakening. Leah Remini, still the most beautiful woman on the planet. It's her and Marissa Tomei, bar none. Two most beautiful women on earth. Anyway, I think that's what Star Wars gives me that nothing else can. And I think that's why we're discussing the nature of fan favorites and the nature of fan favorites in Star Wars. We've barely said Leia. We've barely said Han Solo. We've barely said Luke Skywalker. We've said Ahsoka. We've said Anakin. Anakin is not a major character the way Darth Vader is. Anakin is the wimpy sidekick. Anakin is the scrappy fucking dude.
Yeah.
And he even becomes the villain in the film.
As far as the film canon goes, though, yeah. I mean, everything about Anakin that most people tend to love is stuff that was beefed up by Clone Wars.
The only thing I actually know about canon, I have to admit, is I've read every issue of the first 2 runs of his comic.
Kanan. Yeah.
Kanan, thank you. And legitimately excellent character. Really visually stunning, really interesting thing. Never got to see him in the shows though. Okay, I wanna turn this out to you guys. I wanna turn it out like a 1997 Missy Elliott track featuring Ludacris. And my question for you guys: 1997, Ludacris didn't have any songs on the radio in 1997. What a liar!
You said it.
I said it. What a liar! All right, I'm gonna be honest. I don't know what the fuck a Thrawn is. There's a guy who really helped me become a cool guy. I was in college and I was nerdy and I was like, I'm a cool guy and I'm into weird stuff. And he was like, yeah, mumbling, that's not going to be cool. Let's get you a microphone. And my buddy Adam taught me how to be cool. And Adam was the first guy who was like, come on, just be yourself, man. And it was a defining friendship for me that changed my life. And if you ask Adam his absolute favorite books of all time, he's going to say stuff like, In a Karenina, and he's gonna say stuff like the old man in the sea, and he's gonna say stuff like the Thrawn trilogy. And this character is such a cultural icon. Kevo, you're the one of us wearing a Rebel shirt in the Buffy font that I bought for you because you're a sexy motherfucker. Can you please explain to me what a Thrawn is and why I don't want to get one in my finger?
Honestly, it's something that I've always been sort of perplexed by. I read some amount of Star Wars novels in my youth,
But you
but I
really like those
never,
Young Jedi Chronicles, right?
yeah, but I never read the Thrawn trilogy, and so it's really more as an adult that I've come to understand exactly who his character is beyond just like he is Imperial Admiral, and he is blue, and he is mad. And also, there's a clone of Luke Skywalker, and he spells it with two
Two
U's,
U's.
everyone. So watch out.
Like a doctor on
Um,
ER. He's Luke.
so I'm not even fully sure how much the new Star Wars canon version connects to the old Star Wars canon version. I know that the guy who wrote the original Thrawn trilogy wrote some new Thrawn books. This guy just can't, Timothy Zahn just can't leave Thrawn alone. He's too blue and too beautiful. And he's extra galactic, I believe, in the first place. So, sure.
That was Intergalactic by the Beastie Boys, one of the greatest pieces of music ever composed in the history of the world.
You'll have to make that for tomorrow's theme.
Can I? Oh my god.
Yeah, of course.
Oh god, the Beastie Boys.
You can make whatever music you want, sweetheart.
Oh gosh, no one was supposed to stop after that. I was just doing a shoulder shimmy. TK.
Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
How Star Wars were you before us? Is it one of those things like, when you're 40, if you live below the Mason-Dixon line, you have to decide if you're into smoking meat or Civil War history? Was this one of those things where, like, as a gay, you decided you were either a nerd or into Tina, either the drug X or Turner, right? Was this a thing for you where you went full nerd, or was Star Wars something you always kept at a distance? And how do you feel about the emergence of your kind of fandom in the Star Wars universe?
I don't know if my kind of fandom has emerged in the Star Wars universe. I was always into Star Wars, or I was into Star Wars very young. My mom got me into Star Wars when I was in about 5th grade, and I loved it. My big thing was, for years, I would force all of my friends to learn the rules to and play the Star Wars tabletop role-playing game.
Bless you, sir.
And
Nice.
I would
God's
DM these really elaborate scenarios.
I love that.
Yeah, so I've always been a big Star Wars person. It definitely waned during the prequels for me a little bit. I was never a huge Clone Wars or Rebels person. Just the timing didn't work out. I was very excited about the new ones. Really was bummed about 9. 9 just did not do it for me. And then I always figured my time in the sun with these would come, so I was never super like, I must. And so it was through doing the show that I was really motivated to start watching a lot of the new stuff. But there was never a point at which I was like, I am not interested. I will not be watching these. It was more just like, I didn't have that moment of being ready right from the get-go to see all of this.
Right.
I had a moment as an adult where it's so stupid and I feel so dumb that this is what caused it. But I have this really clear memory of that same buddy, Adam, playing for me. Oh God, I can't remember who it is. It's somebody so ridiculous, like Static X, but it's definitely not Static X, doing a cover of Earth Angel.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's like a very literal cover. And it made me just kind of remember how cool 50s music was. And I was like, all right, Kevo has to watch Twin Peaks. And like that's sort of like the chain reaction that occurs where something suddenly becomes magical to you. I was lucky enough that when I worked at a comic shop, the owner of the comic shop was, dude, this guy was weirdly cool for a straight old guy that owned a comic shop, straight old white guy. He was like, I'm going to a Bauhaus show. You want to come with me? Like, he was a cool guy. Any guy who's 45 and wants to go see Bauhaus with a 20-year-old is pretty cool. I don't know. But one of the things that he made very clear to me was understanding the nature of the transitory relationship that different generations have with media. He was like, I can't sell an issue of Avengers to a 45-year-old the way I can sell an issue of Avengers to a 25-year-old. There's a different thing in how I have to approach a customer, right? And one of the things that I think is really important to remember is, just to go back to comics for a minute, when Kebo and I first got together, Kebo and I would talk about the nature of Doctor Who is the TVist equivalent at the time in 2007, 2008 of a comic book. I love Deadpool. I identify as a Deadpool. Like, I have a Deadpool onesie that I wear on Christmas Eve. A lot of fun, right? But I have this great Deadpool Christmas sweater. Anyway, I think if I am asked to look at, and like I've had dinner with Suzanne Gaffney, the editor on the early Deadpool minis, and had the opportunity to interview her about being one of the only women in the X office in the 90s. And if you ask her about who Deadpool was back then, he sucked. And he was problematic, and those stories are troubling. And that's not the guy who is selling out movie theaters now, right? There's a sense of growth and of transformation that was required for Deadpool to go from Wade Wilson, Mark with a Mouth, who was fighting Kane, Weapon X, the unfortunate sexiest second sexiest person to ever have Weapon X as a title, and actual second person to have it, to get him to being the character on the screen. And that's, I think, part of what Star Wars really requires to make work so well. The idea that there are other routes of success. So frequently we think that the root of success is being a major character in a major film. Look at the rise of Captain Jack Sparrow with Johnny Depp becoming a ubiquitous part of pop culture. Sarah Michelle Gellar starring in Buffy the Vampire Slayer made her a household name for decades. Yep. But think about the circuitous route somebody like a Miles Morales took when he is every bit the beautiful creature that Peter Parker is. Look how long it took Spider-Gwen, though it actually didn't take her that long, all things considered, but it took her a minute to reflect the real-world film success of her comic book world, right? And I think what I'm getting at is Ahsoka, Thrawn, the Sabine-esque characters and Satine-esque characters who have been running in Star Wars for a trillion, zillion, billion fandom years, right? Because every moment you love something is a million fandom years, right? I can't tell you the number of times I've imagined 100 gay lovers for Obi-Wan. Like, not to put that out there, but like, I can't tell you the number of men he's loved and the number of times he's been like a gentle guy with them and the number of times he's maybe been a little bit tough. I have this mental image where he actually ran a like a starship garage. He's not that handy. He just runs it. Like, he owns it. He employs people because he can tell good people. And I don't do slash fic as a rule. I don't think that I need to create gay in characters. I think there's enough gay characters that I want to celebrate. But Obi-Wan is obviously pansexual, and if you don't see it, I don't know how to help you. But that's me, a guy resistant to that sort of storytelling, who's immediately like, no, I've thought about a billion of them. Jason Mraz just came out as bisexual, and like, the teenage boy in me who was in love with him when he was performing when I was 15 years old in 2001 at Java Joe's. Like, it captures that magic. And I think that's a little bit the circuitous relationship that Star Wars has with getting people to the forefront. Because Star Wars lets characters percolate in the background for so long, when they rise to that surface, the queerness is built in. I give him a lot of maybe flack, but Roberto Sacasa Aguirre, he definitely, from what I understand, really said polycules are beautiful and put a polycule in
He said
Riverdale.
they exist.
He said that
But
polycules
still-
exist in a hideous world, and as a person who's this is my polycule, that's my husband, that's my partner. I love these two men with all my heart, and like I would never want to lose them, and like it's really great to see them shown. I think Star Wars is the world that's X-Men tried and Jonathan Hickman went limp too fast, but I think Star Wars could give us a polycule, because Star Wars lets fandom sit and to sort of percolate the perfect version of a character. The version of Ahsoka that we're celebrating today is a result of 20 years of fandom's dedication to the idea of this character being perfect before bringing her to live action. I only wish people had maybe given that to Spider-Gwen before what we think is at times a gendered interpretation of the greatest punk rock comic book character since John Constantine. And that's worth discussing. And that's, I think, where I've been most excited. I would love to know your guys' idea about this long-term percolation of character, like Andrew on Buffy, who spent 2 years not being that queer and wasn't that queer when he showed up on Angel, but by the time he showed back up in the comics was a faggot, and like good as a faggot, as a pansexual man who loves men. I love seeing that. I love seeing that growth. How do you guys feel about Star Wars giving characters that much time to develop before they become Ahsoka, the lead of the most expensive TV show to air the week it aired?
It's tough to say. I feel like there's a lot of giving passes and just being happy with what you get. Star Wars has always, the biggest bummer for Star Wars for me has always been that it's not super queer, and that I don't feel that a lot of characters actually do need this much percolation time. I really appreciate what you're saying, and if that's how it works out, great. But like even now, I'm not really seeing any strong examples in the current stuff that's coming out where I'm like, queer icon of any kind, like
Sabine is the gayest thing I've ever seen. And I've watched. That's me bleeping out stuff about bathhouses.
I wouldn't be surprised if at least low-key both Sabine and Ahsoka are not necessarily as a couple, but separately meant to be queer iconic.
But how's that manifesting? That's my question.
Sabine gave herself a closer to fine haircut.
That's fair. You're not wrong.
Yeah, no, I mean I see it, but like I'm gonna need more than a haircut. So I see.
Does she need to DM her own D&D game? What more do you need to see she's a lesbian? Does she need to take a major in industrial engineering?
Girls kissing. Girls kissing. Girls holding hands. Girls holding hands and sharing significant looks, because it's Star Wars.
Gay things, not just gay culture. I forget sometimes because I love
asking a lady on a date.
Because Star Wars isn't hypersexual, so okay, not necessarily kissing,
right?
But
a picnic with another woman where they say things like, "I have feelings." As do I, and I will win an Oscar and also be a spokesperson for all of Israel.
She could even say, "I hate sand."
My Force Ghost wants to mingle with your Force Ghost, or whatever they say. I don't know, but queer men, because we got lesbians technically already, so queer men, if they could not be Jabba the Hutt's super offensive cousin.
Hello, it's me. I'm Jabba the Hutt's offensive cousin, and I'm a gay.
That guy hits on me on Scruff constantly. He's actually a really nice guy, so that interpretation of him is really like, that is one thing that Star Wars definitely. I really do not care for the fact that in Star Wars, if you're fat, you're gross.
Yeah.
I am more attracted to a bear than I am to a bodybuilder these days.
Grow up.
And
George Lucas is no prize.
yeah, I hate the sizeism. Oh my god, I hate the sizeism of the Star Wars universe. And
Jacket.
the classism. Oh my god. Anyone without money is automatically a good person just trying hard. And anyone with money is automatically evil. I'm not making an argument for the quality of people in the ruling class. I'm making a statement about the inability to understand that there's anything other than a person with a heart of gold in a blue jumpsuit. What the fuck is that? Like, every janitor isn't with a heart of gold. It's like, I don't know. It is a thing that I notice with specifically Star Wars. The nature of classism and the nature of sizeism are occasionally Les Mis-esque. Right. So I do want to bring up one other thing about fan favorites, the magic of fan favorites, the power of what fandom does. I'll be honest, I don't think Werewolf by Night is anybody's favorite, but Werewolf by Night, oh Jesus. But Werewolf
That
by
was
Night
Jonah coming through.
But Werewolf by Night had Elsa Bloodstone, who was a lot of people's favorite, right? And gay people love werewolves, right? So
Apparently.
there is nothing though like and I mean this like as somebody who all right, I'm gonna say it one time on air, and I say it once a year maybe. I loved Batman just as much as I love Daredevil, just as much as I love Tori Amos. I love Batman. But my entire Batman collection was ruined in a flood, and I lost every Batman from 1969 to 1998, and could never ever hope to get literally down to Batman and the Outsiders, every Batman comic in that time. So I'll never get it back. It's too hard to talk about. But as a DC guy on some level, the nature of what the DCEU was like, oh, did you guys hear about this Marvel universe? I don't know if you guys have heard about it. It's no big deal. They came out like 20 years after us. You could just ignore them. But if you guys have heard about this Marvel universe, we're going to kind of do the same thing. And we're going to launch a lot of products. And if you guys want to check out all of these awesome products as a result of the DC expanded universe, then you should check these out. And then, like, David Zaslav came in like the dark god at the beginning of a JRPG and said no and canceled every project in the universe. So what I really want to just kind of mention is, as we're saying, like things like Marvel are maybe having a few too many projects and they're not all turning out great. And Star Wars is kind of hitting that exact moment of the right number of projects, even if like Rotten Tomatoes scores makes it seem a little bit like a burn book, right? Nothing quite compares to what DC had to give up. The number of canceled DC EU projects is fucking insane. Hold on. They canceled, obviously, Batgirl. Everybody knows about Batgirl. But Ben Affleck's The Batman, a Batman Beyond movie, a Black Adam sequel, a Black Canary project, an untitled Crisis on Infinite Earths film. I really probably would assume it's going to be called Crisis on Infinite Earths, but I appreciate calling it untitled. Cyborg, Deadshot, Deathstroke, the Flash sequel, a Green Lantern movie, Gotham City Sirens, Harley Quinn versus the Joker, Our Man, there's an interesting one, an untitled John Constantine television series. We can only hope it was better than the first one. An untitled Joker film, an untitled Justice League sequel. By the way, that Joker film, unrelated to the Joker film starring Joaquin Phoenix, and the sequel starring Lady Gaga that filmed in a park that the three of us have all hiked through. So, this is an unrelated Joker canon in the canon of the DC universe that is not the Joker canon. I'm tired. A Justice League Dark movie by Guillermo del Toro, who is the greatest director to be alive and the best comic DC has produced in a long time. What a bummer. Krypton, Lobo, Madam X, not the Madonna record, an untitled Man of Steel sequel, because we're clamoring for that, right? That guy can't even finish a Netflix show. The Metal Men, New Gods. Oh, that's a bummer. Nightwing, an untitled Black Manta film. Yikes. Plastic Man, Static Shock. That's a loss. Untitled Val Zod television series. Who is this for?
I have to ask, is there a lot more? Because you've been talking for like 2 minutes straight.
Wonder Twins, an untitled Wonder Woman sequel, and a Zatanna film. We're in an era of fan service, and that many DC projects were all canceled when David Zaslav came in like a nightmare monster. I see Ali Galactic is like, nah, I gotta bail, and I'm like, nah, us too. We also
We're
have
bailing
to
soon
bail.
too, don't worry. Oh, I got it.
I
Stop, I got it.
had already hit show again when you said I got it. Anyway.
I feel so bad for DC though, because Warner Brothers just has no faith in them and has really put nothing behind them for the last like 15 years, and it's just sad, really.
You
they don't
shouldn't need
have
Heath Ledger to die to believe in your product line.
even with Marvel floundering, because a lot of people forget how much Marvel exhaustion there was before Endgame and before the 6 months and a whole year of 15,000 projects that was 2021. There already was exhaustion on Marvel, but
Yeah.
even then it has been given so much more support and room than so many attempts at making the DC stuff that there has been. And we really do have to be grateful for the fact that we have these opportunities for the Elsa Bloodstones, for the Ahsokas, because there is so much potential for all of these stories. And Star Wars especially being something that is such a unique IP, that is such a weird journey, it's really cool to see it have support like that, because you can see what happens with something like DC when you don't.
But, I guess the tough thing is Star Wars is killing it and DC isn't, no matter what. Like, it's tough
Yeah,
because...
nothing's stopping them from killing it. That's fairly fair.
It's tough because the execs hire the creatives, and then the creatives do have to do a certain amount of good job and make something that people want. But then what happens from there, when that doesn't happen, the support gets really wonky and uneven.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, like, Zack Snyder did make a bunch of not great DC movies. Wonder Woman is not a great DC movie. As Ali Galactic is pointing out, it really does speak to the creativity of the Star Wars group specifically. Their stuff is fantastic. Marvel's isn't amazing. It just simply isn't right now. Some stuff is, but on the whole, it is not hitting the way that the entire offering from Disney Plus for Star Wars is. And DC is way below Marvel in that regard. Like, DC has made stuff that isn't even, could be better, but is still really fun. It's not stuff like She-Hulk, where certain demographics like myself absolutely love it, and then other demographics just despise it. It is universally... I mean, I don't want to die after watching this, but I'm never going to go see it again. It's just people are so uninterested, and what Star Wars really has done over and over again is generate interest and generate jaw drops, and that's... in this era, that's actually really tough to do, and that is why they deserve the support.
It's Pokemon and Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not trying to be funny, but Pokemon, Star Wars, maybe Looney Tunes, Disney. There's only so many companies that have gone ahead and redefined their genre. Kevo, I thought I was a Star Wars fan, and then I met you. And I came to realize that you can be a casual Star Wars fan, or you can be a casual hardcore Star Wars fan. And that's different. And like, it's been a real pleasure learning Star Wars from you the way I've tried to teach you Marvel, but I feel like Marvel is a study in contradictions, whereas Star Wars is a study in reflection, even if occasionally that reflection gets a little muddy. Marvel, there's 37,000 comics. You got to read them all. There's none that aren't canon unless they're not canon. Star Wars is like there's 9 movies.
And there's stuff and there's things, but like one person will write 2 different books that completely contradict each other, so it's all just
Exactly.
magic.
So how do you feel about Ahsoka? You know, as a queer man who married a Latin queer man, you know, the only thing that we regret is our incredibly cis lifestyle. But, you know, we try to be a beacon for strength and hope in this era. And that's something that you always taught me that Star Wars is meant to represent. So how do you feel about seeing the realization of Ahsoka, a queer icon, in my opinion? I understand why TK doesn't feel that, you know, Ahsoka is a queer icon, but then again, everybody doesn't think that Angel Face should be beaten to a bloody pulp in Fight Club. We all have our disagreements. How do you feel about the nature of Ahsoka as we look at the future of Star Wars?
You know, I think it's interesting. I think it's exciting. I think they have definitely captured the aesthetic of Star Wars that I have grown to know and love while still pushing it into really new and interesting places. I loved the attempt at pop music that they did that sounded very K-pop-ish. I think that was a really clever evolution of the brand and their ideas. And I yeah, no, I'm really interested to see where it goes, and I think a lot of people need. I think mostly people just need to friggin' relax about it. Just try and enjoy it. If you don't really fully understand everything, there's plenty of programs, even smarter than ours, that have made 50 videos explaining every single character that was in this week's episodes. Or you could Google it. There's Wikipedia. There's so many ways that you can get the information now that you couldn't get it 30 years ago. So like, you know, take what you can from it, enjoy, and just try and enjoy it instead of trying to henpeck it to death, because how is that more fun?
Well, speaking of the better thing to do, I think the better thing to do is wrap this boy up and roll into tomorrow's beautiful episode where we're going to talk a little bit about Ahsoka. We're going to talk a lot about the worst library in drag history.
Wasn't great.
We're going to talk a little bit about Project Runway. We're going to talk about a million things, but we're also going to talk about Ahsoka, which were 2 of the best episodes of TV I got a pleasure to watch this year. But until then, Kevo, your shining, wonderful countenance. Where can everybody find it all over this wild interwebs?
You can find me over on the socials at Kevoreally. That's KEVOREALLY. Teak, where can the folks find you?
You can find me at TK Elemental. Nico, where they find you?
Nico Action. That's NICOACTION. And until we come back, that has been Ali Galactic. That's ALIGALATIACTIC. This is like that moment where I can't even think of the Disney song where it is, but Ludwig von Drake can't spell something.
Lavender,
anyway,
blue, dilly, 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 dilly.
Thank you.
Silly. It's the color song.
Yes, it is. Red, yellow, green, red, blue, 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 red, purple, green, orange, orange, red.
Beige.
Okay, we're going to wrap this. Everything's so great. So here's what you guys got to do. The only thing you got to do is you got to be brave in whatever form that takes. You got to evolve daily. You got to stay strong. And you got to remember that we're going to see fan favorite.
I had her for you, so I needed to.
Yes, absolutely. Assigned cop at birth, exactly as Ali Galactic says. Assigned cop at birth. Yes. I'm not sure what be brave, evolve. Okay. Anyway, I can't make it. But here's what you guys got to do. You got to be brave.
Abracadabra.
Stay safe. Evolve daily. And we'll see you guys tomorrow at 6 p.m. for another amazing show here on X's for Show.